This is another activity that can be done at home, a center that can be set up for your child. A sensory center or a sensory bin. When I used to be a home visitor, I would create sensory bins, different forms of sensory bins. So I'm going to go over this and then I'm going to give you some examples. But the kids loved it and it worked for speech and language. It was just amazing. So here we go. Sensory center. When I'm in the sensory center, I am. And first comes the definition of sensory play. It includes an activity that stimulates your young child's senses, such as touch, smell, taste, sight, or hearing. And it can also hit multiple of the senses at one time. Sensory activities and sensory tables facilitate exploration and naturally encourage children to use scientific processes while they play, create, and investigate and explore. Spending time stimulating their senses help children develop cognitively, linguistically, socially, emotionally, physically, and creatively. So, sensory play is probably another one of the most important plays that we have, especially if you have a child that has a high sensory need. Just because they have a high sensory need does not mean that they may have some form of disability. I mean, we all have senses, we're all human, and we all have a different way that our senses get activated, deactivated, and also get stimulated to where it provides positive hormones within our brain that get released, such as dopamine. And so it's fun for the kids. And you can input different things. Like, for example, I would create sensory bins from the dollar store, like get sand and get some foam ABC letters and put them in there. And then the kids have to take them out with their pincer grip, and then poke them out like little tweezers with their fingers if you don't have tweezers. You just created your own little tweezers, which are the best ones because it also provides sensory feedback. There's tons and tons. So I'm going to make another video about how to create sensory bins within your own home. And you can also add academic concepts to those sensory bins, such as numbers, ABCs, shapes, colors, things like that, with what you have at your home or stuff that you could simply buy at the dollar store. The next is art area. This is another area that you can create within your home. An art area. So participate in art activities, provides growth opportunities in direct accordance with child's abilities and interests, builds large and small muscles, and provides linear experience for later writing skills. Parents, this is one of the most important. The more art your child does, the more strength and dexterity their hand will have. It increases the growth, which leads to greater cognition. It develops the hand, the muscles, the bones, so that way they are ready when it comes time for kindergarten to hold their pencil and write their name. I know some parents may be worried my child's not writing their name yet, but it's okay because they're in preschool. And in preschool, this is what we're learning. We're learning how to do art, how to hold the paintbrush, how to make lines and movements. And first, the movements start off big as gross motor, and then they go and they get developed as fine motors, which then comes the writing. The writing comes last. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong. What it means is that their hand is still developing. Their muscles are still developing. The dexterity of their hand is still developing. And I will make another video to describe specifically just the writing and the hand development and what we can do to increase their abilities in that area. Besides doing art projects, using a glue stick, trying to use scissors, let them make a mess. I know some parents, as parents, sometimes we're like, don't make a mess. I don't want to clean that up. but you know, let them make a mess. Have an area that's safe for them to make a mess and learn and be preschoolers. In the meantime, while we wait for us to get back in the classroom. It also enhances art area, enhances color and shape awareness, development of problem solving skills. It increases the ability to organize and express ideas. It provides children a chance to expand their creativity. It also can be a socially interactive experience if you're at home with other siblings, and build self-concept and identity skills as well. You can incorporate that in there. Uses different materials and techniques to make art creations, create artistic work of art that reflect thoughts, feelings, experiences, and previous knowledge, and discusses one's own artistic creations and those of others. These are all skills that within the art area at the preschool, they're able to gain, but we can also create an area in the home that can support these skills as well. So to create an art area within the home, you can have materials that are bought maybe at the Dollar Tree. If you have a Dollar General where you live, then Dollar General. But that's not open yet over here where we live in Hollister. But you can have chunky crayons, you can have markers. Markers are really good because they're nice and thick. Let's see, do I have markers? I don't have markers. You can get paints and a paintbrush. If you're interested in learning how to make paints at home with the materials you have at home, go ahead and send me a message and I can send you that on Learning Genie. How to make tempera paint at home. I think it's flour, water, cornstarch, and food coloring. And if your child is just finger painting or painting with the brush trains the hand to do the tripod hold, which is this. It would be just as if they were holding a pencil. Like we can pretend that this is a paintbrush and you're going up and down, or side to side or around. So all these movements are strengthening the hand. And getting them ready for writing their name, because you know children don't go straight into writing their name. They go into painting first, and finger painting and gluing and collaging and all the great stuff that develops the pincer grip that will later develop into the tripod grip. All right, the next area we're going into is music and movement. Music and movement. When I play in the music area, I follow directions. I learn to differentiate different types of music and music tempos. Develop large and small motor skills through dance. They're enhancing their listening skills. This is one of the greatest skills for getting ready to get to kindergarten. Is they're listening to the music, they're listening to the teacher, they're listening to the instructions. They're developing concepts, vocabulary, and phonological awareness as well, especially with phonological songs. And they can recognize and say names of various musical instruments. That's something deeper, and that it depends on the teacher. If the teacher decides to teach that to the student, that is something that they can learn. Which when we take out our musical instruments in class, we do learn about different musical instruments. I can communicate and express myself through music. I can listen, pay attention, and follow directions. Experiment with musical instruments and dance, moving to different patterns of the beat and rhythm and music, and using creative movement to express concepts and feelings. Music and movement, one of our favorite things to do throughout the day. It's one of my favorite because there's so much that children can learn through music and listening and seeing and dancing and moving their body with their kinesthetic learning. Because they're little, they need as much movement and dancing as possible. And so within our songs with Miss MJ's class, with Miss Tina and Miss Alex, in Calaveras 3, what we do is, well, what I do is in our classroom is I give sign language for the gestures. Some gestures can be regular gestures, but most of them will be sign language because it's important to be able to communicate with other people that cannot communicate. And since our students are small and young, what it does is it gives them that kinesthetic learning movement piece, but it also helps the brain develop, and they're learning an actual sign for the word that they're singing. And for me, that is extremely important as I grew up with friends who were deaf and hard of hearing, or some people that I knew from a later time who became deaf. It's important to be able to communicate with our community around us, and that's why we incorporate sign language within our classroom. The last area I will go into is the writing area. Within this also can be set up within the home. So it says, when I'm in the writing area, I learn early literacy skills. I learn to coordinate my small, fine motor skills, develop hand strength and dexterity. There's that hand strength again. So if they're scribbling, and to us adults, sometimes that might not look like much, but to them, that is the development that they're in. That is where their hand and mind are developed, and it will grow. The more opportunities they're given to do the gross motor writing, the more fine-tuned it will become with time. But we have to allow them to do the gross motor first. That is the development of the child, the way it is naturally developed. And technically, we're not supposed to fight it. We're supposed to just go with it. And we're supposed to let them express themselves in whatever way they are expressing themselves with the gross motor writing of their hand first, which is like scribbling and doodling and painting and stuff like that. They're able to express themselves with words as they get older, more towards the 4.5, 5-year-old stage. When they start picking up words and they've already learned to write their name, then they can start learning new words, which we call heart words. This is from Nellie Edge's kindergarten website, is the heart words. So for example, the words that are most familiar and most loved to your child would be like mom, dad, me, I, maybe love, and then you. Those would be heart words. And so these are little expressions that they can memorize, and they can also learn to write. And that's why this is here, to express myself with words. But first comes the expression through lines and doodling and scribbling. And then it becomes more fine-tuned to where they start drawing shapes. And then they start going into little drawings. And then after they do little drawings, then they start writing their name. And then after they write their name, then they can go ahead and start learning how to write other words as well. They also share their thoughts, feelings, ideas, and are creative. They learn that they can make stories too. They learn that they could communicate through written representations, symbols, and or letters, drawings. They experiment with various writing tools and materials. This is one of my favorite things to do for them in the writing art area, is give them every single type of writing material that you can have, except for a permanent marker. Highlighters, crayons, markers, oil pastels, chalk, things like that. Once they learn that they can only do that art on their paper on the table, then you can go ahead and experiment with various writing tools and materials. Yeah, the next one is writing for purpose. So writing names, writing numbers, letters, sharing stories, and sharing an opinion. So these are all things that in class we put in their writing area. You know, put ABCs in the writing area, put numbers in there. And the best way to do that is in the like flashcard form or like foam letters. So that way they can go ahead and play with it, manipulate it. You know, sometimes they'll even try to write on it. I mean, that's okay. If it's just for the writing area, then that's okay because that's how they're practicing. Yeah, so you can also create that at home. Here we have to use scribbles, shapes, pictures, and letters to represent objects, stories, experiences, and ideas. To copy, trace, research, write, transfer writing from one page to another, or independently write letters and words. Practice hand-eye coordination. So these are all the amazing skills that they gain within the writing area.